Okay, so welcome back from break, and we're going to go over the respiratory system today. Okay, so obviously you are on the Google Classroom. Could you just tell me if you looked at the respiratory system, because we posted it before break, but we never went over it, so I'm not sure if you remember to go over it. Okay, great. Okay, so yeah, so basically the respiratory system, let me move the Zoom controls over. Okay, so the respiratory system functions is pretty simple. So it's the body system that's responsible for gas exchange between your body and its external environment. So the external part brings air into your lungs and releases the air, which is essentially breathing. And the internal part of the respiratory system is like the actual chemical processes or exchanges of carbon dioxide and oxygen between cells and blood vessels. So those are essentially the functions. So the components of the respiratory system is the mouth and nose, because that is where you breathe in air, it pulls the air from outside your body. Your sinuses, you might have heard of them, like your sinuses get inflated when you're sick, and they regulate temperature and humidity of the air and your body. The pharynx, which is your throat, and it is the tube that delivers air from your mouth and nose to the trachea, which is a passage that connects your throat and lungs. So it's like a long windpipe. It is your windpipe. The scientific name is trachea. The bronchial tubes, which is just the trachea, which splits into two. And then you have bronchioles, which are the bronchial tubes, which just split into many. And then you have your actual lungs, which are organs that remove oxygen from the air and pass it into your blood. And we went over all of that in the circulatory system. So the muscle and bone part of the respiratory system is your diaphragm, which is the big muscle that separates your thoracic and abdominal cavity, and it helps push the lungs, pull and push air in and out. And your ribs, which are the bones that surround and protect your lungs and heart, because without them, your lungs would be punctured very easily if you were to walk into something, and they wouldn't protect you at all. Okay. So the respiratory pathway is pretty straightforward, and it the air enters through your nasal cavity or your mouth, depends which way you breathe. Then it goes into your pharynx, and then your larynx, and then your epiglottis. And your epiglottis is somewhere here, and it is a flap, like a fat flap. It's made of fat, and it prevents food from going down your respiratory pathway. So obviously you take in air through your mouth, but you also take in food. So you don't want food going into your lung, because that's like sometimes when you drink water too fast, or something similar, like you cough, right? Because your epiglottis didn't have time to function and accidentally opened in the wrong spot because it allowed water into your lungs. But usually the epiglottis does its work. So that's what prevents food from going down your respiratory pathway. And then the air goes into your trachea, which is this like your windpipe. And then you see how it like splits into your bronchial tubes or bronchi, and then all of these are your bronchioles. It's like a tree, the bronchial tree, because it looks like a tree the way it spreads. And then at the end of those bronchioles are alveoli, and these alveoli are where the actual gas exchange happens, where the carbon dioxide and oxygen exchange, and how you get oxygen into yourself and breathe. Okay, so more about your lungs. They're the center of your respiratory system. They're probably the first thing you think about. And they transfer the oxygen to the blood in your body. So very important for getting oxygen to all your organs and tissues and muscles. And the lungs have this thing called pleura, which is a two-layered membrane which covers your lungs and it cushions them for support and reduces the friction between your ribcage and chest cavity. And it's really important because when you think about it, like if you didn't have pleura and your lungs were going against and rubbing against your rib cage and their bones, your lungs would get pretty worn out and then you wouldn't be able to breathe as well and exchange oxygen as well. And you would probably have something pretty fatal happen to you. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, that is why your pleura is very important. So with regarding your actual lungs, you have 5 lobes, 2 in your left, 3 in the right. I'm not sure why it's uneven. You can see that in the picture here. And your left lung has the superior and inferior lobes. So the superior ones at the top, the inferior ones at the bottom, as you remember from terminology. Then your right lung has a superior and inferior as well, but it also has a middle lobe. I'm not sure why. It just does. There's no really importance or significance to it. And the function of all these lungs is to bring oxygen into your bloodstream and remove the carbon dioxide, which is the gas exchange. Okay. So here you can see a little more easily. You have your lobes, and then you have fissures, which is just like the lobe that when the lobes come together. So you have fissures in your lungs, you have lobes, you have pleura. And you can see the pleura here better. So like this is your actual lung, but the yellow part is all the pleura. So you get really good cushion between, so your lungs are protected. So that was pretty much it for the system. It's pretty simple, but do you have any questions?